Presentation aids can be a useful way to help your audience members understand the types of concepts and arguments that you are making in a presentation. They are helpful in helping listeners process the information, retain information, they can save some time, and they can help you appear more professional. There's a lot of different things PAs can do, and there's a lot of different PAs we can use. You could use props or models, you could use pictures, graphs, charts, tables, something audio or visual if you'd like to. There's a lot of ways that you could aid your presentation through the use of adding something into it that's other than just you speaking. There's a few rules of thumb that we want to be talking about though. For one, think about the amount of time that your PA, which would be a presentation aid, or a VA, specifically a visual aid you're using. Think about how much time that visual aid is taking out of your presentation. If you're giving a 3-minute speech and you use 30 seconds of it for your VA or your PA, not the right ratio. You're talking about was that 1/6 of your presentation, 1/9 of your presentation is not you talking. It's something else. Not the right approach, especially if it's going to be a video or an audio clip. So think about that as you're considering how to create your presentation aids. In addition, make sure that your presentation aids are simple. You don't want something that's going to be overly complex. You want to only have one idea per aid. Think about where you are placing your VAs if you're going to be using a VA in a screen like this. Is your VA going to go here? Is it going to go over here? Is it going to go right in front of your face? Do you need to zoom up on the camera on it? Is your VA going to work like this? Would a physical VA like this cup be a better option than a paper VA like we're talking about? You also need to think about the size of your VA compared to the type of way that you're going to be presenting. Is this VA the correct size, or is this VA the correct size? It's going to be a little bit different depending on if you're in this room as opposed to in this room. Now in this room, if you use the small floppy paper VA, you might deal with the paper falling down, it's harder for us to see, that type of thing. As compared to if you would use this type of VA where it's on a thick board, it's supported well, it's got the black frame around it, it ends up having a more professional look and it helps direct your audience members' attention better to that actual VA. Let's talk about text on your VA. Maybe you've got a great VA that ends up having some text on it. Is that text something that's going to help your audience members pay attention to what you're saying? In general, I'm going to advise against having text on your VAs for 2 reasons. First off, it's going to increase the likelihood that you're looking at your VA instead of your audience members when you're trying to explain it to them. Second, the likelihood is increased that you're going to try to read off your speech from the VA instead of trying to explain how the VA is a helper in explaining whatever concept or argument you're trying to make. Now let's talk professionalism. When you're using VAs, they can either add to your credibility or take away from your credibility. Now let's say I posted this VA up for a presentation I was giving. What do you notice about the VA? The first thing that I notice about it is that it's got tape on several parts of the VA that you can see. I taped on the outside to attach the picture to the board. That's going to take away a little bit of that professional image that I have for a presentation. Just doing something simple like making sure that the tape is hidden is enough to impact the way that your presentation is going to be seen by other people. Other professional things to think about would be to make sure that your VAs or PAs all have a similar look to them. If you've got one on a blackboard, put all of them on a blackboard. If you have blue text on one, put blue text on all of them. Make sure that your VAs are consistent throughout your presentation. Also, think about when you are presenting this PA to your audience members or this VA to your audience members. Is the VA something that you're directly referring to? Or is the VA something that's just kind of up in the background and that you're not referring to? You'll notice in the background that I have a small sign, and the sign has lots of words on it that may or may not be distracting you. Until I actually want to make reference to the sign and tie it into my speech in some way, I want to hide my VA. So I could say, so today we've been talking about life's little lessons, and some of them that we have learned include let go, make mistakes, start over. And if we can remember these lessons, then we'll be able to live a happier life. Couple of more things to think about with your PAs and VAs. First of all, practice your speech with your aide. Because if you get into the speech day and that's the first time you're incorporating your aide into the speech, it's not going to go well. Trust me, it's not something you want to do. Second, make sure you're speaking to your audience and not to the aide, because it's very easy to get sucked into whatever thing you're talking about and forget that you're actually talking to your audience about this aid that you brought into the presentation. And finally, be prepared that if something happens with your presentation aid, that if it gets broken, if it gets stepped on, whatever, be prepared to present without that presentation aid. Practice presenting without it, that you could describe it or that you could skip over it if you would need to. And lastly, think about if your aid is actually necessary or not. If you could take the presentation aid out of your presentation and your presentation is not any weaker, it's not any stronger, your presentation aid isn't helping. Maybe think about taking that out of there because it will most likely end up just being a distraction.